Right, as a UK MMA fan, I just want to talk about Darren Till for a second. So Darren Till is obviously currently carrying the mantle for UK MMA within the UFC. I mean, you could even, to be fair, you could even argue it's Leon Edwards, but the UFC seems to be way more interested in pushing Darren Till. And that's not me trying to sort of diss a professional cage fighter or whatever, but ultimately the UFC does get behind Darren Till more for whatever reason. They don't really talk about Leon Edwards. It is mainly about Darren Till. So in that regard, I do feel as though Darren Till a lot of the time kind of represents British MMA in the UFC. Whether or not that should be the case, again, debatable. But it used to be Michael Bisping. Now it's Darren Till. So let's talk about his fight last night and what is next for Darren Till now. So realistically, I watched that fight, and the first thing I'm seeing, I mean, Darren Till's striking is excellent, first of all, right? He's got great footwork. You know, you could see that he uses it well to sort of get out of the position of being taken down. Like, he's pretty good at sort of cage positioning. He always seems to make it so that he's the one on the front foot. So he's definitely got like a lot of good things about his game, like a lot of quite original things. Like, he's got elements that he can beat, that can allow him to beat a lot of people. Like, I don't think a lot of people in the division can actually deal with Darren Till's striking. Now, does he always use all his weapons? No, not really. I thought there were times where they were sort of clinched up, where, you know, Darren could have maybe used his elbows or, you know, the knees and all that sort of thing. But since he's moved to middleweight, he seems very much sort of fixated on sort of keeping the distance. And I'm not sure if that's because at welterweight he felt as though he was bigger than everyone. And now at middleweight he feels he's a bit smaller. I don't really know. I mean, I don't want to see him go back to welterweight because I'm against that kind of weight cut. I'm very, very against that. So I do want him to stick it out at middleweight and try and become a world champion there. However, there was a few things that I'm seeing about that fight. So, like I said, he's got good striking. You know, footwork's good. He gets out of the way well. Like when Brunson was trying to take him down, he's sort of framing the right arm, and then he was able to circle away. So he's pretty good at that. I think he's pretty good at sort of avoiding the situation of a takedown. However, I'm finding his striking like a little bit predictable. I kind of expected him. I didn't do a prediction video on this card because it was too late. By the time I figured out it was happening, it was too late. But I kind of thought that his striking should be blowing Derek Brunson away, and it didn't look one-sided enough to me. And I don't know if that's because he's too fixated on trying to land the left hand or whatever. Like when he did throw kicks, when he threw his left leg kick, I felt like that was really effective. And I think southpaw versus southpaw, that's definitely a weapon that he should have lent on more. So I'd like to see him throw a few more kicks and knees and just mix it up a little bit more when it comes to the striking attack. However, it's on the ground where I think he really needs to sort of make improvements. Like the camp that he's with, I don't know what they're really like. I don't think they've got like bad ground games. Like they've got Tom Aspinall, who's got a pretty good ground game for a heavyweight there. You know, they've got a couple of other decent young British fighters. So I don't think some people are going to say it's a camp problem. I don't think it is. They just need to get a jiu-jitsu teacher or a wrestling teacher in to talk to Darren Till about the ground game. Ultimately, you know, he's pretty good at defending takedowns. So, you know, I don't think that's necessarily always going to be a problem, but I think if he was more confident off his back, that might help him let his offense flow a little bit more. Like, because at the moment it seems like he's dependent on the left hand, and Brunson kind of knew that. Like, I know he rocked him with one late in the fight, just before he got submitted, ironically. But that left hand, it wasn't always landed. Brunson was blocking it. Yeah, so he was getting his like right shoulder up there just because he could see the right hand coming. Like he kind of paused with the right hand and then he throws the left. And it's like it's obviously I'm not going to say this to his face. I know that Darren Till could beat me up, so don't hate on me for saying this, but I do feel like at the highest level of MMA, Darren Till's striking is a little bit predictable, to be totally honest. And you know, he's obviously got some speed. So like if he's fighting sort of guys in the top 20, top 15, then that's probably going to work. Like what he does is probably going to work because he is a very good athlete. He's very quick. He's got punching power. But once you get to the highest level and people are game planning and the coaches are watching footage and all this sort of shit, they're going to figure out what are this guy's habits. And you know, the left hand, he's throwing it a lot, and it is a bit predictable. I felt in that fight. Obviously, he landed it in the end, but it would have helped if he doesn't really throw a jab. He kind of just paused with the right hand and then throws the left, as I said a minute ago. He throws left leg kicks, and I'm sure he can throw a good left body kick as well. He done that against Cerrone. I'd just like to see him mix in those kicks a little bit more. Then that way, I understand that the left hand is sort of his main go-to weapon, and I get that, but if he added some of these other weapons, not added them because we know he's got them, like he was like pretty much kickboxing at a professional level, so he definitely has these weapons. It's just about mixing them in on sort of a more regular basis, and I think that's what we'd like to see. But what I was shocked about in that fight is the lack of ground defence. So I know that the English have got a reputation for sort of bad wrestling and not the best ground defence, but I expected a little bit more from him. I mean, I was looking at Brunson ground and pounding him from the guard, and I was like, what is this, like 2004? Like it looked like when Tito Ortiz used to do it, and it's like this shit doesn't work anymore at high level MMA. Like I'm not saying he needs to become like Damian Maia. He's probably never going to be Damian Maia. Like, he doesn't necessarily need to learn submissions off his back, but I think the best case study we've got in English MMA is Michael Bisping. Like, look at how good he was. He had pretty decent jiu-jitsu, but he never submitted anyone. However, he learnt takedowns and he learnt to get back up off the bottom when he was taken down. And I think that's the key here that Darren Till needs to take away, is that he needs to go away and work on that. Like, I think what he should do is, ultimately the best thing would be for him to fight someone like, Christoph Jotko or Brad Tavares, someone of that sort of ilk. I don't think the UFC will let him do that because he's already quite a big name, so I don't think they'll want to step him back that far, if that makes sense. But he does need to go back a little bit, because ultimately, all the guys at the top of the division, this is no disrespect to Derek Brunson, but all the guys at the top of the middleweight division, they've all beaten him, and there's a reason for that. It's because if you want to be a world champion at middleweight, then Derek Brunson's kind of a guy you've got to beat to be into that sort of top 5 level. So I think he's got to take a bit of a step back. I think it's more likely to be sort of Uriah Hall, or what's the other guy, Kevin Holland. I think it's going to be one of them two that Darren Till fights next. And that'll be good because it's a nice stand-up fight. He doesn't get that sort of wrestling tested again immediately, and they're just kind of going to strike with him. Not that they're easy fights, I don't want to say that, but it's kind of the fight that Darren Till prefers. He prefers that striking matchup. So I think one of those two is a good next fight. It'll be exciting. But I think in the background, he needs to be working on that jiu-jitsu and trying to work on getting back up to his feet. Because he's already got good footwork, so he's quite evasive. It's not easy to shoot on Darren Till. And I don't think it's that easy to take him down either. I think he did prove that last night. He wasn't taken down at will. He was fighting every takedown. Brunson wasn't able to get him down with every attempt. So I think he's got very good takedown defence. I just think you need more variety on the striking offence, and just work on the ground game a little bit so that you can get back up when you're taken down. I think those are the two main things that I would say that Darren Till needs to work on. And then in terms of the next fight, just exciting striking match with, like I say, Uriah Hall or Kevin Holland to be next.